What really scares you? Maybe it's not the dark, or heights, or that tiny insect that makes you lose your ground. Maybe what truly scares you is the unknown, the unpredictable, the feeling of losing control. Because fear, deep down, isn't just an emotion. It's an instinct, a silent alarm that was born with humanity, and, in a way, still saves our lives every single day. But it can also trap us, paralyze us, and keep us from living the most intense and liberating experiences we could ever have. Fear is ancient, older than language itself, and it has shaped the way our species has survived for thousands of years. Yet, in our modern world, where danger often takes invisible forms, deadlines, expectations, emotional wounds, we still respond as if our very survival were at stake. That's why understanding fear is not just psychology. It's a form of self-liberation. Because when we truly look at what frightens us, we begin to understand the architecture of our own mind, its defenses, its limits, and its infinite capacity to adapt. Facing fear is like turning on a light in a room we've been afraid to enter. And sometimes, what we find there is not a monster, but a part of ourselves that simply wanted to be seen, understood, and accepted. Every fear hides a truth about who we are and what we value. And when we uncover that truth, the fear begins to lose its shape. Fear begins in a small part of the brain called the amygdala. It's the amygdala that sets off the alarm when something seems dangerous. In a fraction of a second, the body goes into high alert. The heart races, breathing changes, muscles tense up, ready to fight or flee. It's the famous fight or flight response, inherited from our ancestors who had to react quickly not to become someone's prey. But the world has changed, and dangers rarely have teeth or claws anymore. Today, fear shows up in different forms. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of disappointment, fear of not being enough. And yet, the brain reacts as if we were still facing a wild predator. It cannot tell the difference between a lion and a bad memory, between physical threat and emotional pain. The same chemical storm floods the body: adrenaline, cortisol, alertness. What once helped us survive in the wild now fuels anxiety in the modern jungle of thoughts. It's as if evolution gifted us an ancient alarm system that we've never learned how to turn off. And learning to do that, to calm the body, to reassure the mind, is the first step toward true emotional freedom. By learning how the brain works, we also learn how to speak its language, how to send signals of safety, peace, and presence. This mechanism is so powerful that it can give rise to phobias, intense, specific, and often irrational fears that take control of our minds. Arachnophobia, the fear of spiders; claustrophobia, the fear of enclosed spaces; social phobia, the fear of being judged. Each one has an emotional root, a memory, or an experience that the brain once labeled as dangerous and stored as an absolute truth. It's as if the mind said, "This is dangerous, and I never want to go through this again." From that moment on, every similar signal becomes a trigger. The body reacts before reason even has a chance to intervene. Phobias are not weakness. They are protective responses gone too far, patterns of survival that became prisons. And while we can't always trace their origin, we can learn to rewrite their story through patience, understanding, and compassion for our own mind. Because every phobia carries a hidden logic, a story that once made sense, even if now it feels irrational. When we face them gently, with guidance and persistence, we slowly remind the brain that it is safe again, that the threat is over. And this realization, repeated over time, begins to dissolve even the deepest fears. It's a long journey, but one that leads back to freedom. The freedom to live without hiding from your own mind. But here's something important. Fear isn't the enemy. It's a message. It tells us where the wounds are that still need attention, where our limits can be expanded. And that's exactly where psychology steps in. Not to erase fear, but to teach us how to have a dialogue with it. Because fear speaks in the language of the body. Tight chest, trembling hands, racing heart. And learning to listen transforms it from a monster into a messenger. When you stop running from fear and start asking what it wants to show you, you begin to heal. Each fear hides a story, a need, a forgotten version of yourself that still longs for safety. To listen is to reclaim your inner peace, and to face fear is to meet yourself, without masks, without distractions, in your most vulnerable and authentic form. True courage begins not in strength, but in gentleness, in the choice to sit with discomfort until it becomes understanding. Because fear doesn't vanish when ignored. It transforms when embraced, when it's finally allowed to be felt without judgment or shame. The more we welcome it, the more it teaches us to trust ourselves again. Cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, for instance, is one of the most effective approaches for this. It helps identify distorted thoughts that feed fear and replaces them with more realistic and balanced interpretations. Over time, the brain relearns how to react, less automatically, more consciously. It's like rewriting the neural pathways, giving the mind a new sense of control. Through gradual exposure and cognitive restructuring, CBT allows people to face their fears step by step, with understanding instead of avoidance. And with every small victory, the brain rewires itself, proving that safety is possible. The process isn't easy, but it's liberating, because it teaches you that you are not your fear. You are the one who observes it, questions it, and transforms it. Each new thought built through therapy becomes a bridge between panic and peace, between paralysis and movement. In the quiet repetition of new beliefs, the mind learns to trust again. Slowly, you begin to realize that fear was never trying to harm you. It was trying to protect you, just using the wrong language. And when you learn that language, you stop fighting yourself and start cooperating with your own mind. Another powerful tool is mindfulness, the practice of being fully present and observing your emotions without judgment. When we feel fear and, instead of fighting it, choose to welcome it, something deep within us changes. The instinct to run weakens, and what once felt unbearable starts to dissolve. Meditation, conscious breathing, and focusing on the present moment help break the anxiety cycle. That endless loop of, what if? What if it goes wrong? What if they judge me? What if I can't do it? Mindfulness replies, what if you just stayed here now? And in that silence, in that pause, the nervous system begins to calm. You start to see fear not as an enemy to conquer, but as energy that can be transformed. The practice reminds us that we are safe in this moment, that the danger often lives only in the imagination. In that awareness, we find space, and in that space, freedom. Over time, mindfulness becomes a sanctuary, a place within you where fear cannot dictate, only whisper. And in that quiet whisper, you often hear the truth you've been avoiding. Not what you should fear, but what you're ready to face. That's the real essence of peace, not the absence of fear, but the ability to remain whole in its presence. To understand fear is to understand yourself. Because fear shows us what we value most: safety, love, belonging, life itself. It's the guardian of what matters. When we look at it with curiosity instead of resistance, it loses its power to control us. The fear of public speaking, for example, may reveal a deep desire to be accepted. The fear of rejection may show how much we long for love. The fear of loss reveals how deeply we can love. In every fear, there is a reflection of love. Love for life, love for connection, love for meaning. And when you understand that fear and love are two sides of the same coin, you stop trying to destroy one and start nurturing the other. Understanding fear becomes an act of compassion, not just for yourself, but for everyone who has ever trembled in silence. Because when you heal your fear, you also learn to understand the fears of others. You become gentler, more patient, and more human. Someone who sees beyond reactions into the heart of what people are truly feeling. In that empathy, fear transforms into connection. And connection is what truly heals. Turning fear into strength is an act of silent courage. It's the moment when, even with your heart pounding, you decide to take the next step. Because courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the choice to move forward despite it. The most inspiring people in history felt fear too. They just refused to let it decide their path. Fear whispers, "Don't," but courage answers, "Try." Every time you act in spite of fear, you expand your world a little more. You teach your brain that it's safe to grow, to risk, to feel. Courage is not loud. Sometimes it's just the quiet decision to keep going, to walk through the storm with trembling hands and an open heart. And with each step forward, you remind yourself, fear is temporary, but growth is permanent. The more you face it, the smaller it becomes. Until one day, you realize that the thing that once terrified you now gives you strength. Because courage, like fear, is contagious. And when you choose it, you inspire others to do the same. So maybe the question isn't, how can I eliminate fear? But how can I learn from it? Because fear teaches you where your power lies. It points toward growth, toward the unknown that's calling you to evolve. When you face it head-on, something inside you awakens. That same instinct that once protected you now becomes fuel to move beyond. The fear that once caged you becomes the fire that propels you forward. And with each confrontation, you reclaim a part of yourself that you had left behind in the shadows. Growth, after all, begins where comfort ends. And every time you face what scares you, you become a little more whole, a little more alive. In the end, fear doesn't want to stop you. It wants to prepare you. It's a test of trust. Trust in yourself, in life, and in the infinite capacity of your heart to adapt and rise again. Because when you finally stop running, you discover that fear was never chasing you. It was guiding you home. Take a deep breath. Observe what scares you. And remember, fear isn't the end of the road. It's the beginning of transformation. If you can walk with it instead of against it, you'll discover that within fear lies a powerful force waiting to be awakened. It is the call of your potential, wrapped in discomfort, waiting for your courage to answer. So let fear guide you, not control you. Because on the other side of fear, there is always freedom. And when that freedom finally arrives, you realize fear was never your enemy. It was your teacher all along. It was the compass pointing you toward everything you were meant to become. So the next time your heart races, smile. That's not weakness. That's your soul preparing to grow wings. Every heartbeat of fear is an invitation to live more deeply, more truthfully, more humanly. If this message helped you understand yourself a little better, share it, leave a like, and subscribe to the channel. Because self-knowledge is a journey, and walking together makes it lighter. And until then, look at your fear with new eyes. Maybe it's only trying to show you how capable you truly are. And remember, the goal isn't to be fearless, but to live fully, even when fear walks beside you. Because fear will always be there, but so will your courage. And that's what makes you unstoppable. In the end, the dance between fear and courage is what makes life real, raw, and deeply human. And that's the most beautiful part of all. Because to feel fear is to feel alive, and to rise above it is to discover who you truly are.